Thinking about your love, I'll be there. You can be rest assured that we think about you. We indeed care about you here on the smoothest dial on Lagos Radio, Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life, and we certainly love you. Thinking about your love all the way from 1991 from Kenny Thomas is what you just listened to. Now, let us get down to the business. We have been going on and on about men and their mental health needs, why they are not sharing their issues. So let us take it further. I have my guest with me already. He is joining me via Zoom, and you can be a part of the conversation. So what you can do, first of all, is go to our YouTube channel. That will be www.youtube.com/smooth981 FM Lagos. Then you can also send your messages to 0809-444-0981, or you can drop it in the chat box option of YouTube. You can call the number 01-448-9981. Now, that said, my guest is a consultant clinical psychologist, not his first or second time here, and I'm very grateful that he always comes through. His name is Chris Abojei. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. It's a pleasure to always be around. Thank you.
Thank you. And happy Father's Day to you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
All right. So this year, the Father's or the Men's Health Week or the Men's Health Month, the theme generally is building healthy environments for men and boys. And earlier, I was asking a question for the men, why they do not share their challenges and issues, especially with women. And quite a number of answers came through. Now, quick data. So it is said again that men are less likely than women to be diagnosed with any of the most common mental health disorders. And those who have even received a diagnosis do not, in fact, they are less likely to seek treatment. Yet, nearly 4 times as many men as women are dying by suicide, dying because it's not just a thing of the past. Also, going further, it says that men on the average die almost 5 years earlier than women, which is not a very funny thing. And part of the reason is that men are more reluctant to go to the doctor, according to a study from mentalhealthmonth.org, and that women go to the doctor twice as much as men. So first off, on a personal note, what is your take on this?
Well, so I agree with the statistics, 100%. And that's also because even in practice, even in clinical practice, we see that women are more likely to come to a therapist than men. So when we look at the ratio of men to women who seek help, you would see that you have more women actually seeking help. When I look at my own, client base, I would say that the statistics is even, 10 to 1. In that sense. So you'd see that for every 10 women who seeks help or who reaches out, just 1 man would reach out, And I think that the challenge is that, men have been socialized to think that, they are strong, and then asking for help is a sign of weakness. And that's a major issue. It's the socialization system. Men are from a very early age are taught not to cry because it's not manly to cry. It's not manly to talk about your problems. It's not manly to complain. You will hear people say, why are you just complaining like a woman? You will hear people say that, and it looks like, oh, you know what, you're not supposed to talk about your problems. You're supposed to just, bottle it and fix it yourself. And that's the challenge that we're facing. So even when men have health concerns or mental health issues, they just keep it to themselves. Unfortunately, it's not healthy. It's not healthy to keep it to yourself because, again, you're bottling up pent-up emotions that could eventually affect every area of your life, mentally, physically, and even social well-being.
Thank you. Now I have a call. I'm not sure what the caller wants to say, but I'll take it. Hello, good morning. Good morning. What's your name and location? All right. Thank you for calling. What's your take? What would you like to share?
My own, I don't see it as a sign of weakness to share my thoughts with my wife or maybe anything. But what I do basically is that when I feel, I own up easily because uh, you don't have all the whole ideas in the whole world. Your wife is your assistant and she's always there to support. But what make me sometimes want to own up or not to discuss something with her because she will not take it the way I will take it. If something bad happens now, she will take it more, even if it happens to me directly, if anything happens to me will affect her basically. She will take it more than she will not understand it on my own view. I might just think, well, this has happened, well, there's no problem. I will let's just see before but the way she will take it, she will ponder it more, just like my mom too. My mom and my wife, they always feel the same way over things. They'll ponder over things over. Why is this like that? So sometimes that's why I just try to own up. That's why I don't. You will not want a guy will not want to discuss things with the opposite sex or the wife or the mother or the sister. Sometimes. Yes, but when it comes to health issues, yes, women more likely she goes to the hospital more than I agree with that fact. But I want to discuss if I have a major health issue, no matter how she will take it, because eventually she will know. But if it's a major, if it's on the other side, if I had a setback that will just go after sometimes. I want to keep it because I will handle it better. She will be more emotional and she will ponder over it for a very long time and it might affect me more. So that's my own take. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for sharing.
Yeah. I think that's a very interesting perspective. Two things that he mentioned, which I totally agree with, is that one, the concerns of men are not taken seriously. Again, it's still part of the socialization where we think that men are strong enough to handle their issues. And that's one reason why. So why would I share when you will not even take it seriously? And I totally agree with him in that sense. Yes. So he would prefer to just try to solve it himself than sharing. And this is something that many men can relate with. Yeah, I agree.
I'll dig up some of the things that have been said before you came on. Some of the responses said, number one of the reasons men do not share is because the women are too emotional when they handle these issues. And secondly, that the women tend to, the attraction and the respect that they have for these men tends to drop when the men get vulnerable with them. And another thing is that the men said that they like to share or they prefer to share with somebody who has practical solutions for them.
I agree with some of them, but what I've also seen is that, so yes, if you cannot share with your wife because she's emotional or she'll be sensitive, I think that's the word, might be too sensitive to comprehend the situation. We still struggle with the issue of sharing with a professional, even though some men are saying that, you know what, if I share with a professional, I prefer to share with someone who has practical solutions. We expect that a professional should be able to provide you with practical solutions, right? But they still struggle to share. In fact, many times, and I hear this, when women successfully drag their husbands to therapy, for example, what I hear them say is that, you know what, there's no problem. And even though if it's obvious that there is a problem and they need to fix, they are always saying, you know what, don't worry, I have it under control. I can fix it. There's no problem. And that, for me, leads to what I said earlier, which is that there is that socialization of, of perceived weakness, perceived incompetence, perceived vulnerability, which men do not want to. So they believe that, oh, you know what, if I'm sharing, it's because I don't know how to fix it. Right, which could also be, the result of women, not being able to handle it because they feel that their men should be able to fix it. Again, it's still part of all that social. You're a man, you should fix it. So when the man shares, the woman is shocked that, how can you have this issue? How can you not know how to fix it? And so even the men unconsciously internalize these things. And they themselves expect themselves to be able to fix things, to be able to deal with it, should have the solutions. Now, funny enough, I even have women who come to therapy with their husbands and they say that, I just need you to talk to me. Talk to me about what you're going through. And I'll hear the man say, but when I talk to you, you don't take it seriously. When I talk to you, you're not able to handle it. And so, what I've seen over time is, it's not just about, people who have practical solutions for them. It goes deeper than that. It's a whole lot of socialization thing. It's the way they were built up growing up, which is different from the way women were built up. A woman has been socialized to talk, to speak. And so, yes, even if you don't want to listen, the woman will rant for you. If you like run out of the house. Exactly. When you come back, she will continue where she stopped earlier, So because that's how they've been socialized. And when she notices that you're not listening, she goes outside to talk to a friend. And of course, if that is not giving her the solution, she looks for a professional. So you see that the woman has been saying, no matter what, find someone to talk to. And that's what they will keep on doing until they find the right person who would listen and who would help them get the solution.
Now, this is my take. If you do not understand the differences, the core and the clear natural psychological differences between a man and a woman, I think you should just hold on marriage, because it's one of the things that will affect you. So if you don't understand how a man is wired and how a woman is wired, and you want to rush into marriage, I think you should hold on and ponder on that and get to know the differences, because it will help you so that when you're having issues, you're wondering why the woman is ranting and can't keep quiet. Well, it's how she is built. Let's take a quick breather. When we come back, we continue on the issues. And of course, we get practical about how to actually build healthy environment for men and boys. This is Breakfast in Bed here on Smooth 98.1.
We are your number one adult contemporary radio station.
Music.
This is Mr. C, and you're listening to
I had quite the messages and calls this morning, and one of them even said that there was one that really got to me. Where is it?
Join me on Luxury Soul every Saturday between 5 p.m.
Yeah, one said that women claim that they want men to share, yet when the men share, they use it against them when conflict arises. And I felt bad because I know, yes, there are some women who do that.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree. Yeah.
98.1.
You're listening to Soul Food 981 Father's Day special. We are talking about the mental health needs of men, and we are talking about building healthy environments for men and boys. Now, since we have, of course, my guest is Chris Abojei, and he is a consultant clinical psychologist. So since we've talked about issues, raised the issues, let's talk about how to build healthy environment for men and boys, because one of the things you raised is that men have been socialized somehow when they were growing up. It was like a sort of programming that this is how you should feel, this is how you should take issues, this is how you should feel as a man. Your ego comes first before your feelings, emotions, and all of that. So how do we go back to the root to start to build healthy environment for boys and by extension men?
Okay, I like the fact that you're saying going back to the roots, right? Because for me, it goes back to parenting. You said something before we came on air, which is that, you need to prepare, to get married, for example. I believe that the two institutes, very important institutes actually, that people don't prepare for is marriage and parenting. So you go to school to become a doctor, you spend years, but when it's time to get married, you just find that girl that gives you butterflies in the stomach and you get married. And then, of course, when it's time to have kids, nobody really gives a lot of thoughts about these things. But unfortunately or unconsciously, these are the most important institutions. In fact, the society is the way it is because of these institutions. So I think that if people become more deliberate about marriage, become more deliberate about parenting. Now, this simply means that, you are first starting a growth journey for yourself before even starting that, marriage or parenting. And then as parents, we need to learn how to even get in touch with our emotions. Now, that is important because by you parenting yourself or reparenting yourself, you are able to parent your kids. When we talked about, socialization for men, I think that the problem is not just with men. There's also the issue with socialization with women. That means that if we want to get a right solution, we're not just going to try to educate the men. We also have to educate the woman. We need to help the woman understand the mind of the man. We need to help the woman understand how the man responds. It was in the past where you think that the way to the man's heart is through his stomach or through his belly. That is not true anymore. It's not true. So you can prepare the best foods, best food, and yes, you'll not get to his heart. And so women need to understand that their roles go beyond just, preparing the nice food, being the nice wife and all that. It's also being able to listen, allowing your partner to be vulnerable, for example, listening to him and understanding that when he shares with you, it took a lot for him to even get to that point where he's sharing with you. And even if you think that he should have it under control, but he's sharing with you, not necessarily because he doesn't have it under control, but because he needs a partner. And so we need to understand that our role goes beyond, the basic, things that we've been told. So it goes down to the roots, learning to become parents who are in tune with their emotions, and being able to train our children to also be in tune with their emotions, to be vulnerable and understand that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's also okay to be strong when you need to, but understanding the difference, knowing when to be vulnerable, knowing when to be strong. I think that if we can go back to re-educating people, re-educating parents, re-educating, children, it would go a long way to dealing with some of these issues. One other thing that I would suggest is providing avenue for men to actually share. One thing that I've seen in my practice, and this is, more practical, is that if we're expecting men to just stand up and begin to open up, we might never get there. But there are some already avenues or situations where men already feel free to share. Why don't we harness those opportunities? So for example, a typical man when he's not necessarily a typical man, yeah. So the average man when he's under a lot of pressure would decide to engage in catharsis. That's activities that allow him to express his emotions without necessarily talking. So the average man will probably want to go to the bar, get a few drinks. Will probably want to talk to, his friends, not necessarily about the problem, but about sports, about some of these other issues. So if we could create interventions, tailored interventions where men can gather, just talk. And then, within those gatherings, there are people who can listen and provide the right information or right solutions, not just someone who tell you that, you're not a man. And then, of course, they are only worsening the situation. So I think that if the society, and maybe this might fall on us, the practitioners, if we can look at practical solutions that feed into the man's already designed system, while we keep on trying to help redesign and re-socialize men, I think that would also go a long way.
Thank you very much. I think you already touched on something when you were talking about catharsis, how men decide to let and, of course, get rid of whatever, or at least come to their own rescue. You touched on one of the top most common mental health disorders that men go through, and that's substance use disorder. Now, according to data from Monitoring the Future survey of young adults, it was found out that young men are more likely than women to abuse drugs, including marijuana, hallucinogens, and prescriptions painkillers. Then men are 2 times more likely to binge drink than women. And then they have consistently higher rate of alcohol-related deaths and hospitalization because, of course, problematic drinking and other male substance abuse is seen as socially acceptable for these men. Now, how do we draw the line between you engaging in cathartic activity to just go back to normal, to reduce the pressure, whatever it is that you're going through, and not crossing over to substance use disorder?
Wait, so when it comes to substance use and every behavior that people could become dependent on, I always say to people that the substance is not the problem, right? The substance is not the problem. So if a person drinks, smokes, whatever they do, that's not the problem. The problem is that that substance helps them to solve another problem. It meets a need. I have an opinion, and this is my personal opinion, that nobody becomes dependent on a substance except that substance fulfills a purpose. And so when you're trying to deal with substance use dependence, for example, substance dependence, and you're focusing only on the substance, you're going to miss it. You would never be able to resolve it. But if we were to look away from the substance and then ask ourselves, what is the problem? Why do these people drink? Why does this person smoke? And that's also because that statistics you just read now has come to a point where it's almost equal. That means you're almost finding that men and women engage in substance use behaviors almost equally. And that, of course, we can now begin to see that there's a lot of issues, economic issues going on around now. So people are looking for ways to just express catharsis, to just deal with these issues. But that's not the solution. So for me, it's let's find the reason behind the substance use. And for men, the reason has always been the issue of socialization. It's okay to do it, number one. Number two, it's not okay to be vulnerable. And so rather than just talking, I would go and drink away my sorrows. And we also thank Nollywood, in the 80s and 90s for that. So a guy loses his job, just branches somewhere, drinks away his last salary, and gets back home. So again, that's it. Men have been so told that, when you're going through this, just go and stay somewhere and just clear your mind. That's what they would say. I just want to clear my mind. But in reality, they don't really clear the mind, because yes, you feel better for that while, but you get back home and the problem is still there. So what they're really doing is escaping. We need to help men understand that escaping is only a temporal fix. Now, this is also a difference between men and women. Men would always want to distract themselves from the problem. Okay, there's a problem right now, I'll deal with it later. And from I'll deal with it later, I'll deal with it, and they probably never deal with it. And the problem keeps on accumulating. Women will stay with the problem until it is resolved, so they'll stay with it until, and if you don't want to listen, they will keep on saying it until that problem is resolved. And so I think that it goes beyond just substance use. But in addition to substances, there's also the issue of violent behaviors as well, which is something that men also engage in. What I think that men should look out for is that there are different ways to express catharsis. Drinking, violent behaviors, substance smoking are not just the only ways. So again, it goes back to educating people, is educating them of other healthy ways to express catharsis. Other healthy ways to express catharsis, not just drinking and smoking.
All right. I'll take another breather, the last one. And when I come back, I would like to take your practical ways of actually expressing catharsis so that we get more practical solutions, or give more practical solutions to those who are listening, and ways that they can just get a long-lasting solution, not just short-term fixes or distraction to whatever it is that you're going through. This is Breakfast in Bed here on Smooth 98.1.
Nike, actor, writer, and you're listening to Smooth 98.1. Keep listening.
We have just 5 more minutes.
What are you doing? Where you see calendar?
I'm canceling my savings countdown. Self-paid life in a little bit.
Huh?
My ultra slim retina display laptop from Ultimate will be here in about 3 hours.
On Ultimate, you can own now and pay later with flexible payment options of up to 24 months. The best part is there is 0 interest on all products. So shop your home appliances, electronics, furniture, gadgets, and more now on www.ultimate.ng. Ultimate. Shop more. Pay easy.
This is smooth jazz guitarist Paul Dozier. You are listening to Nigeria's number one station. Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life.
No lies about that when it concerns the R&B, the jazz, the soul, the funk, the world music, the reggae, of course. You can get us every time here on Smooth 98.1. But right now we are talking about men's health needs. It's a Father's Day special on Soul Food 981. My name is Oluwaseun. My guest is a consultant clinical psychologist. His name is Chris Abojei. And we are live on YouTube. So you can go to youtube.com/Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Now, before the breather, you mentioned that there are other healthier ways to engage in cathartic activities other than binge drinking and abusing substances. So what are those ways?
Great. So first, I would say that naturally, men are people who love to, activities that help them feel more confident. Again, this is also part of the socialization that we can take advantage of. Men want to feel confident. They want to feel like, I have things under control. So I always advise men that one way to actually express catharsis is to find something that you enjoy, something that promotes your well-being. So for example, learning a new skill is one way actually. So channeling your energy into learning a new skill, learning something, discovering something about yourself. So you can discover a hobby, you can discover, something interesting about yourself, but you need to, of course, over time, know the things that, so for example, if you're somebody who loves knowledge, then you might want to develop a skill along that line or discover something new along that line. If you're somebody who likes physical activities, then you want to look for a new hobby that allows you to express physical activities. And so maybe like exercise. Exercise could be a good way to just express catharsis. Going to the gym and maybe joining a martial arts club, for example. Now, this might also be a good way. But one thing you find out with these activities is that they help improve your self-confidence. The more you do them, the more you're getting good at them, you feel confident, you feel like you're on top of the world. And that's something that is good for men. You also want to probably engage in what we call relaxation techniques, like your breathing exercise. So when you feel really pressured, just step aside, do a few breathing exercise, progressive muscle relaxation. This can also help you deal with, pressures. Create opportunities to make noise. So some of the things that men do when they argue
did you say noise?
Yes, make noise. Yes, create an opportunity. So some men go to the the viewing center, for example. Even though these days people would buy their own home theaters and watch it from home, but there's a reason why some men keep on going back to the viewing centers, because it allows them to shout about a club, argue about, and this seems like, oh, what are you guys doing? You're wasting your time. But no, it is actually a form of catharsis. When I'm arguing about how superior Chelsea is over Man U, and I'm doing that, and of course, that gives me an opportunity to express catharsis. So it's funny, but these are ways that men can actually express. Now, this is the other one that I'll mention, which is writing, right? Well, not every man would take up this, but there are some men who would like to write, and journaling has been found to be very effective in expressing catharsis. So you can try it if you've never done it before. But if you've done something like this, well, please, that is one way that you can express catharsis: writing your emotions, writing how you feel. And I always advise people to do this in three ways, three questions. One, identify the feeling. What am I feeling? Now, when you do that, don't describe the feeling like, oh, I am sad or I am this. You want to say that, you want to write it rather that I feel sad. It's a feeling. It's not who you are, right? And then go ahead to ask yourself, why do I think I feel this way? Now, that already allows you to express the situations or the triggers, and then go on to say to yourself, how does my emotions make me react? Because again, that would also help you identify the behaviors that are not supposed to be that you might be expressing. So writing is a great way to express catharsis. You could also act it out on inanimate objects, right? So again, this for me is not necessarily a long-term solution. It is for the heat of the moment. The heat of the moment. You are at that point where you're really frustrated. And this is where maybe martial art comes in. Just go to the gym and box a few things, get out the heat. And some people are scared that, oh, what if he's learning how to box and he gets home and he's boxing people at home? That is not likely, right? Because if he has let out the emotions, he's not going to get back home and want to box anybody.
Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah. What if he gets into a situation one day and he doesn't have the avenue to box things or object? All he has to box are humans. What happens?
Now, one thing you find about martial arts and many of these self-defense activities is that the first steps to learning is actually learning self-control. That's the first lesson that you get to learn is self-control, which puts you in a position that even when you are at that point where you can't find things around, you are still able to manage it and get out of that situation. So there are escape strategies. So, leave that situation. Most importantly, because you've been doing this over and over again, there's a conditioning already in your brain that rather than do this to somebody, there is an outlet that I can always take advantage of. It's just the same way men have been conditioned to drink instead of talking. So now we're conditioning them that rather than becoming violent, rather than, just keeping things in yourself, you can always express those emotions with inanimate objects in the gym, right? That is something that, and then I would say this, that learn to talk. Now, even though, we've said, oh, but you need to learn to talk. Learn to talk, not necessarily because you're expecting a solution, right? Because it might be difficult for us to get to the point where we say to everybody, oh, listen to them, and all that, but just learn to talk. Sometimes talking allows you to listen to yourself and find solutions. And so, yes, you can talk to your spouse. He's not getting it, but you're still speaking. But by speaking, you are able to see things from a different perspective. Alternatively, you can both attend a communication skills training, especially for couples where the both of you are taught how to speak and how to listen to each other. I think that would go a long way to helping men express pent-up emotions. But most
Thank
importantly, it
you.
needs to be a practice, something you do repeatedly over and over again, that it becomes part of you.
Thank you so much. I feel like we have taken so many hundreds of thousands of consultation from you this morning. Thank you for the refreshing downpour and outpour of information and education and enlightenment. And I hope that men out there are listening, and of course the women too are listening, how they can help their men. If you're saying that the men are not sharing, now you know what to do better and how the men are wired. Thank you so much again for being a part of the show. To everybody who's called and texted and answered the question. And of course, special thanks to my special guest, Chris Abojei. You can find him across all social media platforms at Chris Abojei. He's the mind doctor. So look for him on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn and everywhere. Chris Abojei. Abojei spelled as Abojei. Yes, I got that right. So yes, reach out to him, ask him question, DM him for a consultation, and he will be there. We continue. 8:40 is the time for the kids. They'll come around, and of course 9 o'clock is for the entertainment segment. Now do not forget that I'll put this video up on our WhatsApp status so that you can go back to watch it and maybe share with somebody who you think should have this information that we just shared. Till then, I will be back.
Just music. It's smooth music.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'll
And
share-
thanks for giving men, the opportunity to speak as well and to listen,
Of course, they deserve it. I always feel bad for them when they say they don't get to be seen in the society. They don't get celebrated as often. So yeah, I'm all for that.
Great.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Well done. Yeah. Take care. Bye.
Bye.